I'm not going to blame Lewis. If things were normal, I wouldn't have been even battling with Lewis. I'd have been battling with Kimi and Max ahead.
What if the man George Russell trusted most on the grid was the same man who just wrecked his afternoon? And what if that man is Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time champion, his former teammate, someone Russell has called a mentor for years? Because that is exactly what happened, and by the end of this you are going to understand why George Russell walked away from that cockpit with a face like thunder, why he pointed the finger straight at Hamilton, and why this might be the moment that changes how we see one of the most respected friendships in modern Formula One. Stay with me, because this changes everything you thought you knew about these two. Let's set the scene. George Russell has been having a season of genuine redemption. After years of being the guy who outqualified everyone, but couldn't convert it into results, 2026 has looked different. He's been scrapping for podiums. He's been vocal. He's been hungry. And heading into this race weekend, he had real momentum behind him. This wasn't just another Sunday. This was a race where points mattered, where a strong finish could shift the entire complexion of his season. And that's exactly why what happened next stings so much. Picture the moment. Russell is in the fight. Position secured, race under control, doing everything right. Then out of nowhere, contact. A car appears where it shouldn't be. Wheels touch. And in an instant, the race that George Russell had built, lap after lap, corner after corner, is over. Just like that. Gone. Now here's the part that turns this from a racing incident into a full-blown story. The driver on the other end of that contact wasn't some rival he's clashed with before. It wasn't a midfield scrapper fighting for position. It was Lewis Hamilton. Yes, that Lewis Hamilton. The man Russell drove alongside at Mercedes. The man who, by Russell's own admission in past interviews, helped shape him as a driver. The same Hamilton who Russell has publicly praised, defended, and at times looked up to like an older brother in this sport. And now, in the aftermath, Russell didn't hold back. Straight after the race, still hot, still furious, he said it plainly. Hamilton ended his race. Not, there was an incident, not, these things happen, he ended my race. Think about how loaded that sentence is. Would you have said that about someone you respect that much? Would you have named them directly, on camera, in the heat of the moment, knowing the entire world would replay that clip 1,000 times? Because that's what makes this so explosive. This wasn't a throwaway line. This was George Russell, usually calm, usually diplomatic, choosing his words like a man who wanted the message to land. And it landed. Social media exploded within minutes. Fans picked sides instantly. Some said Russell was completely justified, that even legends have to be held accountable when they cause a collision. Others pushed back hard, saying Russell was being emotional in the moment, and that racing incidents happen to even the best drivers, including Hamilton himself over the years. So which side are you on? Drop it in the comments right now, because this debate is exactly the kind of thing this channel wants to dig into with you. But here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. Remember, we've seen this movie before. Go back to 2021. Silverstone, Hamilton, and Verstappen. One of the most controversial collisions in modern F1 history. Different drivers, different stakes, but the same core question. When do you call a collision a mistake, and when do you call it a driver crossing a line? That crash defined a title fight. Nobody is saying this incident is on that scale, but the emotional temperature, the instant public trial by fans and pundits, that pattern feels almost identical. History has a way of repeating itself in this sport, doesn't it? Now here's the twist. Most people watching this story completely missed. This isn't just about one race. Behind the scenes, there have been whispers, and yes, we have to say clearly, this part is speculation, that tension between Russell and Hamilton has been quietly building for longer than anyone realized. Some paddock voices suggest Russell has felt for a while that he's had to fight twice as hard for recognition while operating in Hamilton's shadow, even after Hamilton's high-profile move away from Mercedes. If that's true, and again, this is speculation, then this crash might not be the cause of the frustration. It might just be the spark that finally let it out. Doesn't that change how you see that "he ended my race" comment? Suddenly, it's not just about one lap, it's about years of buried tension finally boiling over in front of millions of viewers. Wait till you hear how the paddock reacted after that. Team principals were reportedly asked about it directly in the press pen, and the responses were carefully, almost suspiciously diplomatic. Nobody wanted to fan the flames publicly, but multiple insiders noted the body language in the garage told a very different story. People weren't smiling. People weren't laughing it off. That silence speaks louder than any statement could. And if you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story we break down every single week. So hit subscribe now before we get to the part that really matters. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming in the next few weeks around this rivalry. Because here's the real stakes. If this feud is real, and if it escalates, it could reshape driver dynamics heading into a critical stretch of the season. Contracts get discussed behind closed doors during exactly these kinds of moments. Reputations are built or broken by how a driver responds under pressure. And fans, all of you watching right now, you are the ones who decide the narrative that sticks. That's the power this community actually has. So here's your one clear takeaway from all of this. In Formula One, respect and rivalry are not opposites. They live side by side. And sometimes, the people we admire the most are exactly the ones who hurt us the most on track. That paradox is what makes this sport so brutally human. If you miss this part of the story, none of what comes out over the next few races is going to make sense to you. So keep this channel close, because we will be tracking every single development. Before we go, one more detail worth sitting with. Reportedly, Russell and Hamilton did have a brief conversation after the race, away from cameras, away from microphones. Nobody outside that conversation knows exactly what was said. But whatever it was short. And in this sport, short conversations after a storm like this one usually mean everything or absolutely nothing. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with a fellow F1 fan who needs to see it. Because this story is only just getting started. And next time, we're diving deep into what this means for the championship battle ahead. George Russell didn't just lose a race that day. He may have just told us, without even realizing it, exactly how much this friendship still matters to him.